Hello, everyone. I'm glad y'all can join us tonight. Um, as always, we got a show that we're going to be talking about true crime, and we'll be looking at the Idaho Four, of course, for tonight. As always, a little housekeeping. Nightbot's out there for all our mods. Appreciate y'all working with that and everything. Just doing a great job. And for everyone in chat, just respect the mods, respect each other, have respect for the families of the victims and everyone. And so that everyone can enjoy their time here with us tonight. All right. And with that being said, we'll get. Oh yes. Also, Lolo gave us a $1.49 super sticker tonight. Thank you for that. Early on, you got us in there first thing. We appreciate your support.
Blue light special. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Steve loves that blue light.
You ready?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll go. As always, a little brief bio. This is Mrs. Steve, and I'm Steve. I'm retired law enforcement. Started off working in the jail, and went in to work on the road and continue into investigations. And during those 20 years, I had all different types of training, from SWAT all the way up to becoming a state certified crime scene technician, and which helped my investigative career immensely. But I've investigated all different types of crimes, from thefts all the way up to burglaries, and including homicides. After I retired, I found the true crime world, and decided to become an ambassador for law enforcement. And that's what taken me down this path. And tonight we're going to be looking specifically how law enforcement can affect as they have communications with the public. Not only are they communicating with the public through news releases, and that's what we're going to be looking at specifically tonight, is those news releases from the time that law enforcement first notified everyone about the homicide at 1122 King Road, and continued on from that point on. But they're also that law enforcement realizes that the offender is still out there. And so they're going to be, it's a dual communications, not only to the public to get that help and assistance and trying to put out certain information, but they know that at some point when they let out certain details, the offender, he knows everything about that crime scene. And he knows when they're closing in. And not only does he know when they're closing in, but the offender will recognize that if law enforcement starts employing certain tactics, he'll realize, did I cover my bases and avoid that trap? Or do they have me? Where did I mess up in that unanticipated possibility? And there were some situations in this case, in this homicide, that we'll be able to look at and see specifically of where that would have happened. And when he may have started becoming aware, and when he would have known, yes, this isn't going as perfectly as I planned. But before we get further into it, we also want to make sure that if you have any information regarding this case, regarding Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, or Azana, and that would assist the prosecution or law enforcement, make sure you get that information out. If you have any information out there that the defense would need for Brian Kohberger, the accused, which currently he is the accused and will be accused until and if he is found guilty by the court of law. So if you have any information regarding this case in any shape, form, or fashion, make sure you get that to the proper authorities, because we want justice to be served. And there's only one way that can be done, is that the courts during this trial, they have all the information. All right. And here's the information if you have something for Brian Kohberger, also for the law enforcement tip line, good or bad, make sure you know that they get that information and that they will be able to act on it. All right. In law enforcement, we, in hindsight, and part of the probable cause affidavit, when we read through it, we know what law enforcement, as they built this probable cause to obtain that warrant for his arrest, that they put a lot of information in there that we prior to that arrest warrant, no one had an idea who he was other than law enforcement and whatever type of surveillance teams and investigators that were involved. But once we see how law enforcement looked at him and realized of his abilities and his education, this opens up a whole new avenue and window of investigation for law enforcement. For the fact that Kohberger, having chosen the path that he was in his education, that he had taken, going down that path of working at undergraduate degrees in psychology and cloud-based forensics, he would have known some of the in and outs about psychology and how law enforcement, because he did a essay for the Pullman Police Department. And within that essay, he talked about how he wanted to do and assist law enforcement in collecting and analyzing technological data for safety public safety operations. And which, in hindsight, law enforcement's going to go out there and see that not only was he, as always within the behavioral analysis units, keeping track of the investigations through social media, newspaper reports, and also through which was quite transparent from the law enforcement. And we have to give that to Moscow PD, that they were extremely transparent and getting information out to the public almost daily. And so any offender that was involved in this case could keep track easily. And as law enforcement let out this information, and now they know exactly who he is, they'll be able to go in there and see at what points, as he was maintaining and keeping track of the investigations. And we're not talking about during the period prior to him becoming a suspect. We're just totally focusing upon him as a suspect. That they'll be able to go in there and look at, as they let out key details, what type of searches and what changes in certain aspects of his life that he was taking. And that's extremely important. And because some of those searches can lead law enforcement to a better understanding of the case. But also law enforcement will realize that at some point he will have realized how important certain things were and what would he have done to ensure that he could separate himself from either the weapon, which would be the knife that went with the sheath, and the sheath that was left at the crime scene. And of course, that would have been instantly known by the offender. Once he got to whatever location, or when he was doing inventory, or he was cleaning up, he would have realized there was a separation of that sheath and his knife. And so that when he read that and found out that information, that would have had a great impact. But anyway, we're going to start getting into each of the press releases, and we'll get a little bit more in depth for each of them as we move through here quickly. But of course, this is the first press release of November 13th that advised of the homicides of the 4 individuals at 11:22. And so after that, and as they continued on, the next major, and there's a lot of different updates and coverage that was out there, and I'm just going to be hitting on some very key ones. On November the 13th, or November the 15th, for this press release, they put out some information that although no weapon has been located, and that but they have the belief that it was an edged weapon, such as a knife. Now, the offender, of course, he knows exactly what weapon he used, and so it's no surprise to him that they're looking for a knife. I mean, but for the public at large, there is information for us to look at that this is a type of offender. It's not someone based on someone that has a firearm or was, had gone in there and shot anyone, just a knife. But they also, in this first press release on the 15th, they noted that it was a targeted attack. Now, looking back at the offender, you would think now he has to see and understand, how do they know that I was targeting them? Because it's not a random attack, and there's a lot of different types of attacks and across the board. But he already knows by the 15th that law enforcement is saying they were targeted. And from his understanding and from his educational level, he would be saying, how do they already know that? And that would put up some antennas for him. And also, on the 15th, law enforcement, they did trying to keep calm within the community. They put out a release of that to remain calm and address the community concerns about the public safety, and that they do not believe that there's an ongoing threat for community members, because evidence indicates, once again, that this was a targeted attack. And people will argue that point all the time, that, you know, you have an individual that committed 4 homicides, so of course he is a threat to the community. But also, if they have strong evidence that it was targeted, and as long as no one else falls under those being targeted, they wouldn't be harmed, which I don't agree with. Until and always, anytime you have an offender out there that's committed 4 homicides in such a manner, everyone is in danger. So just because law enforcement says it sometimes doesn't mean that everyone in law enforcement agrees with that angle. Also, on November 18th is when they released the information that detectives have contacted local businesses to determine if a fixed blade knife had been recently purchased. Like I said, the offender already knows, Kohberger, if he's the offender, he knows exactly what kind of knife. And in this little blip here, they say it's a fixed bladed knife. And he also knows that he doesn't have his sheath for his fixed bladed knife anymore. And if he, at this point, there's a lot of choices that he could make. Has he already separated himself from that knife upon getting home, or getting to that first location after leaving the scene, getting everything in order, possibly changing clothes, cleaning up a little bit prior to going back home? Has he already separated himself from the weapon? Has he thrown it away, especially now that he has lost the sheath to it? Was he planning on keeping it? There's a possibility. We just don't know everything there is to know about his mannerisms, or what type of individual he was, as far as the manner in which he carried out this case. But then we get into the 19th, and this is when he would have started really becoming fearful of how and what law enforcement was going to be doing. This is when law enforcement went in and they said that they were going to be doing a canvass of all the of certain areas within the neighborhood, of help from the residents and businesses for all their videos and any of their other digital evidence. And that if you have video surveillance between certain hours, between 3 and 6 a.m. on Sunday, and this here would have absolutely told him that, okay, the bodies, everyone knows that the bodies were found on the 13th around noon, or that's when law enforcement first came. But now he knows that law enforcement is focused upon a certain time of night when there's very little traffic. And he will realize that, is he and will he be able to escape that net? Because with modern technology and his field of study, he would have been extremely hyper aware of where this investigation was going, and how law enforcement would be easily able to track him down, much like they did the Boston bombers. That once they key in on a certain person or vehicle, with all the modern technologies and everything out there, that as you move through society, you're easily tracked now. And that was the case on this. that we can see from the probable cause affidavit that there was certain images captured for extended period of times of his vehicle, or of a vehicle matching the same description as his vehicle. And then they put the map out there so you can see what the map looked like. And of course, this is another avenue that once he's made aware of these streets and these roads, it's going to play through his mind exactly what streets and roads. And did he go back and go through Google Earth, or did he go back through some of the road apps and maps and looked up some of these streets? And if he did, there will be a history of that. And a lot of people are going to say, well, a lot of people looked up those roads and Google Maps and Google Earth. Well, there is a lot of people that did that. I did the same. But my DNA is not on a sheath laying beside one of the bodies of a homicide. And so that would be the distinction. And that would be a huge argument that as they go back in there, that it's not just the evidence that was left at the crime scene prior to the crime. It's going to be all the steps that he may have taken to keep abreast of the information of how law enforcement was going with the investigation and how he was keeping track and some of the things he was looking at. And that's going to be the importance of that DNA profile that was recovered just from the sheath. Now, in other videos and stuff, we'll address that. I believe there will find other DNA profiles belonging to the offender. But currently we just are unaware of that. Then they also go out and say that they're looking for people that have certain notable behavior or video surveillance and have relevant information. And that's going to be everything from that. Has someone said something out of the way? Is someone acting strange? Or do you have anybody on video that possibly could be involved in this or have spoken to someone? And which, he has to look back now. Have I changed anything? Am I acting different? And so he has to be very, very careful. And he's realizing, because now he knows that they're going to be looking, and will they be identifying something? And we find out that eventually they do, because they keep for several days going about, we are looking for all the video and surveillance information out there. Now, there's far more news releases than what I did. There's no way I could get the presentation done in 30 minutes if I went through all of them. So I jumped forward a few days each time. But on this, he becomes aware that that they are update the public on the known facts, and as they go through this, about what type of weapon was used, a fixed blade knife, and that they are continuing to look for that weapon. And also, it was mentioned in this one briefing about Kaylee having a stalker. And so he will, if it comes out, which I think there are now currently, GSI Rebel, Reddit, $49.99. Thank you. Steve, here is a small financial gift for running a professional channel and being appreciative of your mods and subscribers. All funds previously donated to GXI will now be dispersed to ethical content creators, Rebels. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
That allows us to do so much, not as we move forward with our channels, working the cold cases and everything as I move out on those other avenues. Thank you. Appreciate that. But as you look at this, and that if he is and has in the past made contact, and I believe there's been some information released now that he had at some point on Instagram or some method of social media had contacted one of the victims on several occasions. And he's going to be looking at that okay, I'm getting on certain lists, and how many of these lists will I be on at the end of the day? And it's as he realizes each list puts him on a smaller number, because he's into processing data. And as you process that data, it gets narrower and narrower. And then on December the 7th, he knows that they've identified a vehicle, and it is a white 2011, 2013 Hyundai Elantra with unknown license plate. And of any of the information in this, he's probably doubting, is that true or not? And that they're looking for additional information about that vehicle being in the area. So at this point, if Kohberger is a guilty party, he is absolutely, he knows, and things are starting to run through and the pressure is starting to build. Everything that he had done up to this point, the mistakes made, as far as his DNA, he knows that there's a possibility they may have his DNA because he's left there. If he has any injuries, he knows that if they've identified a blood DNA profile, that he's on that list. If they've separated it from other blood pattern analysis within the residence, and so he knows that it's starting to shrink down on him. And he also knows this, that we didn't know, but it was in the probable cause, and that law enforcement had stopped him in a traffic stop August the 21st of 2022, which of course is prior to the homicides. But he also knows that law enforcement standard procedures will be more than likely that they're going to go in, and first thing that law enforcement does in a homicide, if they have a vehicle description, they say, all right, print me out a log of every vehicle matching this description that we've stopped in the last year. And so he knows he's going on that list. And this would be a big notice to him that it's getting worse as we move forward. Got a dog running around upstop, I guess. But anyway, and he knows that law enforcement knows everything about him at this point. They're going to have his picture. They're going to have his vehicle. And at this point, he may start, after December the 7th, realizing that he may be placed under surveillance. And because he knows, like I said, what law enforcement does. Then on December the 8th, they just keep repeating. I mean, only one day into it, but already in that 1 day advance, that the public has offered so much information to the volume of calls and tips and leads coming in about the request of that vehicle. He knows he's going to be tipped in. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about hiding him. He knows at some point that he's going to be part of a list from somebody that his neighbors, people he works with, friends, family, somebody's going to turn him in because it's known across the country that they're looking for a vehicle matching the description that he is driving. And then once again, they just, on December the 12th, harp again and tell you everyone that we're still looking for that vehicle. And if you see that vehicle, absolutely let law enforcement know. Then we get to December 15th, and law enforcement comes out and says we have 22,000 vehicles that we're looking at that fit the search criteria, and that they're still looking for additional information. Would this give him a little bit of comfort that possibly that he's now only one in 22,000, which in law enforcement, I don't think he was ever one of 22,000. I think that early on he was, especially of the vehicle stops, he was on the shortest list by this point would probably be law enforcement's list of everyone that was stopped in a white Elantra that would have been in the law enforcement database. And then we see that just, on December the 15th, when they're talking about this, that he's already traveling east, heading back home. And he gets stopped twice on that same day of December the 15th, once at 10:42 in the morning and once at 3:50 in the afternoon. And the pressures that would be building in his mind, if he is the offender, is absolutely something that the behavioral analysis unit would advise that you have to be extremely vigilant with an individual that's capable of this. And if he is with other people, was this planned or unplanned? We don't know. There's arguments on both sides. I would think, just my personal opinion and just speculating, that these stops weren't just due to him following too closely. I think they wanted to check and see whoever the passenger was, were they in any type of fear or possibly danger. That's just my opinion. I have nothing other than that, that he was stopped for following too closely. And in my career of stopping thousands of cars, I don't even know if I stopped 5 cars in my whole career for following too closely, but it's possible. Then we get to December 20th. We're getting close to the end of everything going on. And there's a vehicle that is found in Oregon, a state over. And instantly they come out, and from his ability to process data, that they've come out and law enforcement saying that this vehicle isn't associated, which would tell the offender that how do they know that vehicle isn't associated? If they know that one isn't, do they know who I am? And so as far as the offender and processing data, I think that he knew pretty much that it was the scope was focusing upon him. Then we get to December the 30th, and this is when the arrest happened. And Pennsylvania State Police went to his home and served the warrant for his arrest. And then, of course, he was extradited later to Idaho, and that's where we're at now. But I did get them all in 28 minutes, so that's pretty good.
Wow. Touchy.
I barely made it. I was trying to get everything in so I can get into the chat and answer that. But as always, if you have any information about this case, once again, about the homicides of Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, or Zana, make sure law enforcement is made aware of any information you have so that we can find justice for them, and that as we move forward and as this case evolves over the next year or so, because there's nothing going to be quick about this case from here on out. And there's going to be a lot of court proceedings, and it's absolutely sad that we find ourselves in this situation when you have 4 such children that have lost their lives to such a tragedy. All right, we got any questions?
You got a few.
All right.
You ready?
I am.
All right. Dave is going to start us off tonight with, hey, Steve, do ankle monitors also track movements and non-motion?
The new modern technologies probably have all different types of things. They're probably more along the almost like some of the Apple Watches and things, but the old ones, they just location. But the new technologies and what they could probably are and how the capabilities are doing is probably far greater than that which I know or was exposed to back in when I was in law enforcement. But I don't see why they wouldn't.
Okay.
Just curious. $4.99 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you so much. All right. 829.95. All right. And Molly at True Crime Web. From the PCA, it appears they knew early on the Elantra was a 2015 or 16, but have people looking for 2011 and 2013. Do you think this was a slight mislead to the public and or BK?
Chris and I on the mob crew, we've talked about this before, and I think that early on when they first let it out, they honestly did think that it was a 2011, 2013. But I think by the time that the other information came in from the FBI expert that says, oh, we can also include 15, 16, they had already pretty well narrowed down their focus and believed that they had a person of interest. Now, I'm just speculating on this for the fact they didn't release it. And why wouldn't they release it? And if they already focused on it, they said, okay, we've got our guy. The public doesn't need to know this, and there's no need to make the suspect aware. And so would they hold that close to the chest and hoping that this gives the offender an out and that he won't burn the vehicle or drive it off a cliff or do something to it, or into water or whatever to try to destroy evidence. And it seemed to have worked if that was their intention.
And Mary P. PCA never states whether or not he was presently an intern at the PD. Was he planning to start internship after winter break?
That is an interesting question. It just makes note that he sent in and applied and had that essay submitted. But it doesn't say, and that is an interesting question. I just don't know the answer yet.
And Jeff F., what proof is made that BK is actually a vegan and hasn't made this up prior as a defense strategy against evidence? People are now using it as an excuse, stating he would never touch a sheep.
Well, I hope this is the biggest thing that the defense can bring to the table, and, because it's not going to work. But public opinion and the theories out here, everyone has a right to it. And, I know nothing about, I understand that there are certain people out there that structure their lives around being vegans or whatever. I know nothing about everything that they will or will not touch, but, he touching humans during the commission of the homicides, he's touching flesh. And so I see no difference.
Hold on one second.
But I hope that's the best defense they have. He's a vegan. That's all they got.
All right. And this one is not a question, but me and dogs, right?
Uh-huh.
So Lolo is a dog lover here also, apparently, and she believes that Murphy had DNA from the killer on him. Is there any mention of Murphy in there?
Yes, there is. But for whatever reason, law enforcement has a different opinion, and they're always hopeful that the dog jumped up on him might have some skin cells under nails or something.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then this one is not a question, but I've already said this, so I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
And this is from Kristen behind the crime door. We think alike. Steve, I think he watched everything as it was happening for sure.
Absolutely. As we've watched other in the true crime world, and we see the profiles that almost all of them have that one singular similarity that they certain individuals do keep track of their crimes and follow it closely in the news media.
And Mindy, if BK did this, he would have had to carry that knife without a sheath. I wonder why he didn't go back for it. Is it possible he wasn't thinking clearly because of the adrenaline rush?
Very. And I've been in those adrenaline rushes. I've been in some confrontations that I was very lucky to survive. And what happens after the adrenaline dump and everything is of course, you're just trying to think of how you will survive. You're not thinking of anything else, and focusing on one thing at a time. He may have still had a knife in hand. He may have had it in a pocket, may have had it in a coat. We just don't know. He may have just walked right out the door with it in hand, and which I would probably think is more the case than anything, and had tunnel vision, because tunnel vision does occur. It's one of the defenses that our body goes into naturally during confrontations, and regardless if you're the predator or the prey. You can have that same adrenaline and same focus.
All right, let's see here.
Tunnel vision is not fun.
Let me catch up here. All right. And Dave, is it possible BK was planning on doing another attack that night via Ted Bundy?
It is possible. He did take a long path and he did go south, if all the information is correct, and once that phone turned back on. But once it did turn back on, it was over. But during that time frame that he would have had to make up decisions of what he was going to do. But once the phone come back on, that was the end of him and his path to further crimes.
Okay.
The crime spree was over.
Okay. I hope I didn't miss any. If I don't ask your question, just retype it real quick at some point.
Mrs. Steve.
You know.
I know. I couldn't do it.
It is what it is.
We wouldn't be here tonight without Mrs. Steve.
PK, did BK undo his belt and the sheath slipped off? I think we've had that question.
Yeah, we had that. Did the sheath break? Did the belt break? Did he not have it? Was he just carrying it Crocodile Dundee's tucked down in his pants? There's so many different ways that he could.
That crocodile.
I do. I mean, yeah, I do. A great movie. And yeah, there's several different possibilities that during the struggles by one of the victims were they able to grab it and rip it from his belt or from his pocket or from inside his waistband. Don't know.
All right, and hold on one second. I got to go find something.
Okay.
Super sticker.
Lolo, $3 super sticker. Thank you for your support.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. House alarm. Oh no, that's camera. Okay. Oh my goodness, what a day. All right. And Jackie B, I am interested to know how they zeroed in on the Elantra.
Well, when they did the video canvas, and you see that there's one camera that's on that street, and I'm sure that it caught glimpses of. And as they expanded that video and canvas, and they started getting in these other streets and intersections and service stations, they built a better and better picture of what that vehicle was, enough so that the FBI expert, you know, he missed it by a couple of years, but still have to give it to him that from what information they had, it was still and will have a huge impact on this case.
Oh, Aspen, you're after my heart.
What did Aspen do?
He said that I was a star and I appreciate her work 1,000%.
That's it. Compete.
Suck up.
Compete with me for her.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Well, let me go back and do my time so I know where I'm at.
Okay.
All right. There's going to be. You may never get done tonight.
Sure we will.
I don't know. Okay. And John.
John, thank you. Thanks for the great work, Mr. and Mrs. Steve. Appreciate
Thank you so much.
This absolutely helps us as we move forward and do other things such as the cold cases. Thank y'all for your support.
No kidding. All right. Two-timing. All right. And SB74 at True Crime Web. What is your best guess as to why he wanted his car back in PA with Washington plates?
Well, it was a holiday, so of course that's exactly what they're going to state. And it's within a week of, December the 7th when that first lookout came out on his vehicle. And was it planned that they were going to drive back? I don't know. Would they be text messages? And law enforcement will know everything about the communications of what, if there is text messaging about plans of which is his chosen way of communicating. Does he make phone calls or does he text like Mrs. Steve? That her whole life is just communications of text. And so all day, every day. And if it is a text, there will be a hard copy of everything that would have shown if he was even going to go to back home to Pennsylvania. But if he wasn't planning on going and then this was a surprise trip, then of course the prosecution will use that.
And Mrs. Sweet, Steve, the defense has presented documents stating that Brian has a co-defendant. Wouldn't this document have to be true under penalty of perjury?
I haven't seen that document yet. If you'll send me a link to that, I'd like to look at that.
All right. Mrs. Sweet's got homework.
I know he made interesting comment. Has anyone else been arrested?
Who made that comment? He did?
When he was arrested, I think
they
report he did. I don't know if he did or not, but that's what was reported.
Okay.
Something along those lines.
All right. And IMS 93, do you think Brian left the sheath on purpose as kind of a way to taunt LE as like a signature? Maybe Brian thought he was smart enough to get caught.
You know, I saw where someone, I saw where someone had mentioned that was almost like a signature or his calling card. That is interesting, but you know, if he's going to leave the sheath, why not leave the knife with it? Cynthia Gaines, $5 super sticker. Thank you. I appreciate your support.
So much.
Why not just leave the weapon? I mean, if you're going to leave a signature and you're going to have gloves on or everything, why not just leave the weapon? And of course, it might be something that he wanted to keep as a trophy or something of that fact. We just don't know everything about the crime scene. We don't know everything about his personality, and there are people out there that have a better understanding exactly of his personality, and the profile of the crime scene, built from the crime scene, will tell a lot about his characteristics. But I don't think that it was, but it could be. I just don't believe that he left that as a signature.
Okay. Perry, UK True Crime. Do you think it's possible Brian will be offered a plea deal, a full confession to take away the death penalty?
I think that now here in Georgia, it takes a lot of things to get to a plea deal. It takes cooperation from the prosecution, defense, and from the families if it's involving a death penalty type of situation. I don't know. But at some point, just like with BTK, could it and would it be offered? It's very possible. It just depends upon these families and the prosecution. The defense may want it all day long, but it takes that prosecution to assist in it.
Okay. Unsolved crimes uncovered at True Crime Web. Do you think others may be involved, or is this the defense's attempt to introduce reasonable doubt?
They're always going to point fingers. They have to, for the fact that are they going to say that the knife sheath was stolen, or he had owned it at one point and no longer the owner of it, or he had at some time in his life owned such a knife and given it to a friend or a neighbor or an associate that he had met out there in Washington? we, you know, that's what defense is. That's their whole reasoning of existing, is that they have to attempt to show that there's someone else that could commit this crime, and that the state has to prove without reasonable doubt it's him. And so they will be pointing fingers. Or he may have an alibi. I don't know what all the defense will do.
Yeah, say that alibi. Holy cow. Thank you so
GHI
much.
read it, $49.99. There are 269 people in chat and 49 likes. Support good content creators by hitting the free like button. Build positivity in the true crime community. Positive vibes, no grift, Reddit rebels. Thank you. That is extremely considerate.
Thank
and
you
nice
so,
of you.
and y'all saw it, right? Go hit the like.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate everyone that supports this channel in so many different ways. Thank y'all. It's humbling, absolutely humbling.
All right, so now I got all out of whack. Okay, so I'll stop there. 6, 9,
Mrs. Steve, she has a system over here.
All right, and Dave wants to know if you're going live tonight. Is that for the morning watch? That's not tonight.
No, morning watch will be that's tomorrow night. So yes, tomorrow night at just after midnight, we'll be having the morning watch, but that's not tonight. No.
All right, SB74 at Steve. Did you test the bat phone today?
No, I've got. He wants me to test the bat phone, the old touch tone bat phone.
Oh.
For you guys that don't know what he's referring to.
Well, it don't have a cord, baby.
I'm gonna have to. Well, I know, right? All I gotta do is rewire it, and I go up there and get electrocuted.
Yeah, good job.
So if I get which it's low
Your
voltage.
insurance is paid
Yeah,
for,
if it's low voltage, it's just a small shot.
it's just a small one. Y'all don't worry about it. It's just a small one. If I'm doing the next show by myself, y'all will know why.
It's only when they call in while you're wiring does it get you.
Yeah. Okay.
Been there.
Yeah. Okay. And from Ann, Mr. Steve, don't you think, though, that in a case where the perp is highly dangerous like this one, LE doesn't play the cat and mouse monitoring game for long, but instead gets him behind bars ASAP?
And they did a pretty good job of that. I know it took 7 or 8 weeks, but you know, from November until last of December. But thinking that he's the #1 suspect and knowing he's the #1 offender by DNA is 2 different things. You may suspect someone, but you don't have probable cause to go up there. So you have to put them under surveillance for long times or some lengthy time until you can get and gather enough evidence to build that probable cause for that arrest. And that's the way our system works. Because, you know, if you don't have the evidence to put a man in jail, then of course you can't. And that's what the court systems uphold, and it's the right way to approach it. And I don't know how long he was under surveillance. I think he was under surveillance for several weeks. I know that in Pennsylvania they said something like 4 days or something, but I think he was under surveillance longer than that, and because of certain things that were said and certain indications. But and those surveillance teams, if they had seen him start to do something to the public, would they have stepped in and done the right thing? Absolutely.
All right. And I don't know who it was, but somebody put in chat that bat phones don't need a cord. There you go. So
you know, I'm trying to think, did he have a phone in his car? I think he did at one point.
Who?
Batman.
I feel sure.
And the Batmobile. him and Robin in the console.
Oh, cool. All right, so let's see here. Did I put that down? Yep. All right. And unsolved crimes uncovered at True Crime Web. Do you think it's possible that someone else used a knife after BK touched the sheath, but perhaps was gloved? Is there a way that may be recovered if it did happen that way?
Well, going by what the witness saw of a single offender, and having opened that door and not seeing anyone else during the 3 times that she was out, it appears that there was only a single offender in the house. Now, the movement of the vehicle outside multiple times and everything, because law enforcement does say in the probable cause affidavit that, or through the news releases, actually more time and time again, that they want to talk to the occupants. They had it both ways, so that of the vehicle, because they thought that persons within the vehicle had critical information about the homicides, and so they left it open to plural or singular. And but our witness inside said they only saw one, so I would think not, but anything's possible.
And Kat, do you think he started stalking them right away? BK moved there in August and he was pulled over 3 weeks later.
I talked to Dr. Susan about that the other day of how long of a process is it to get into a school looking for a doctorate in this situation. And from her explaining to me, it's not something that you would just show up the week before and pay your fees and get into the program that he was going to at Washington State, that it's a multi-month and multiple steps to be taken over numerous months for interviews and other things. But now modern technology, as Dr. Susan stated, might have helped that they could have done some of that online, but did he travel prior to? And so we have to look at, did he travel, and had he made contact with any of these victims prior to his August vehicle stop, and when school and the enrollment fees were being paid in August. And so when you look that it occurred in November, and it possibly took him up to 8 or 9 months to fulfill all the obligations to qualify to attend Washington State, that he could have been there sometime from February on. We just don't know his travel. Law enforcement will look at his travels and see if what his financials were. Did he buy plane tickets? Did he fly? Did he drive? Did he rent a vehicle? Did he buy anything in Washington? Did he buy anything in Moscow while he was in the area? But they'll have that information, and they'll know when he showed up and when he paid his light bill and his water bill for his apartment. So they'll have a lot of information that they'll be able to gather and tell you exactly what his travels and sleep patterns and everything you can imagine about him.
And the breaks at True Crime Web. What are the chances killer took blood from the victims back to his apartment? My profile of BK says yes.
I believe there's going to be a lot of transfer, especially to the vehicle, because the vehicle would become a crime scene. That if we take what the witness said, that as he walked past and they found that shoe print that's in the probable cause affidavit, and they said that they did a presumptive blood test, that if there's blood on the bottom of that shoe, and of course it can wear off rather quickly over distance, but being in 4 violent encounters of your victims dying in the manner they did, you would expect that there would be a a lot of cross contamination and the possibility of transfer to not only to his shoes, bottom of his shoes, but the front of his clothing, the back of his clothing, his arms, his pants, and so that when he entered his vehicle, they would be transferred. Is he able to clean all that up? We will probably find that out relatively soon. Some of the early court hearings would start talking about if there's any more cross contamination, because if there's any from that crime scene in his vehicle, such as any of the victims' blood found in the vehicle, then there's just no way that I can see that he would ever be able to overcome that.
And Legay, is Mrs. Steve also a coffee drinker?
Up until 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Unless we go to Waffle House.
Yes, we'll go to Waffle House sometimes and have supper, and she'll.
I gotta have a Waffle House coffee.
Yes.
All right, and Mrs. Sweet, Steve, the defense has presented documents stating that we've already done that. See there, Nancy. Hi, Steve. There was a Yahoo report that BK messaged one of the girls over and over on Instagram. Has that been confirmed?
I saw it. I don't know right now. Is it possible? Absolutely. But is it also possible or not? Just don't know. A lot of people speculate about a lot of things.
Perry, UK True Crime, what are your top theories on how Kohberger came to pick his targets?
You know, we have so much now that you can go and you can look up on the social media platforms. There's so many out there. And I think, I don't know if any of these victims had ever in their life went on any type of dating app and had heat. But there's so many different ways on Facebook, and I guess within the colleges themselves, that there's certain groupings and associations and commingling, that there's so many different ways. Or could he have just been passing through town and as a vegan decided to stop in a shop that one of these ladies worked in? Absolutely. It could be that easy, or it could be that complex of a social media stalking, cyber stalking event, or just seeing them by chance. One's as good as the other.
And Dave, nothing like a Waffle House. Did Shoney's go out of business down here? No. We still have a few Shoney's. Not as many as we once did, but we can still get to one if we need to. Let's see here. All right. And Lynn, why do they allow him in court with no handcuffs? Is that because of a good behavior? They made him look innocent on a death penalty case.
There are so many types of restraints, from shock belts. I've worked cases whereas you looking at the defendant, and I'd be part of the security team, the 3-man team that we would go in during the trial and sit close to the defendant, and we would be in plain clothes to give the appearance that of making him look innocent, because that's part of the of what the courts want, is that everything that this man is considered to be innocent, and everything should appear that he is, and that that's just part of the Constitution and how the courts look upon it and how they protect his rights until he's found guilty, if he's found guilty. But there's a lot of different things that will light his world up if he does bad things. I don't know what they have on him, but there are certain devices that he would instantly go down if they if he did certain things. I hope they have that on him. I don't know they do, but I would hope they'd have that as a minimum on him.
And Patricia Burns wants to know what a Shoney's is.
It's a sort of like a somewhere between a Waffle House and a Cracker Barrel.
It's got the biggest buffet.
Oh yeah. It does. It has the buffet part of it. Yeah, breakfast buffet is what they're really known for.
Good. They are good. Let's see here.
I arrested 14 people one morning at Shoney's.
Gee, thanks, babe. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
2 families got in a fight at Shoney's.
Go figure. Well, and how many have you arrested at the Waffle House?
Oh goodness.
We won't go there, right?
That's
a story for another night. The Waffle House stories for another night. All right. You still got 11 to go.
Okay.
All right. Mist, don't you think the 2 stops in Indiana could have triggered him to get up and clean the car again?
Probably. I think they made mention of that occurring in Pennsylvania. So yes, I think that probably did.
And LJ, does the knife match the sheath as far as the wounds go?
We don't currently know, but I have argued that that the risk that if that when they analyze that knife and when they go in and they do the post-mortem on the victims, that they'll look at those injuries and they'll know what type of knife due to the injuries are characteristics. And if they mention that knife sheath was found beside the bodies and everything, I would imagine that some of the injuries will absolutely be able to be linked to a knife that has similar characteristics of a knife that would fit within that sheath.
You might have to do a show on your Waffle House nights.
I'll probably do. I'll probably say that for the members.
Oh my goodness. This the breaks question. How would investigators prove that killer didn't have 2 sheaths at scene?
Like, and really,
Doesn't matter.
if he had 1 or 2 or 12, we really don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But I don't think it would really matter.
Yeah. And GHI Rebels of Reddit, has anyone heard that supposedly Brian has matches one of the girls multiple times on Instagram? I think we've done that.
Yeah, yeah. When we was watching, when I was watching Chris earlier tonight on Mob Crew, and he, someone had mentioned and brought that point up there, and they had talked about it, and it is interesting. We just don't know if it's been verified yet or not, and I'm looking forward to that.
All right. And Kaya Johnson, do you think it likely that Brian was more a stalker with a fantasy to kill, but something about that night triggered him to carry it out or planned?
And actually, I had spoke to Dr. Susan earlier, and we're trying to get together for Saturday night, and we'll be just talking about this subject and this question specifically.
Good job, Kaya.
Yep, absolutely. You're reading my mind.
All right.
But that's for Saturday night, I think. But it depends if we can get everything on short notice and get Dr. Susan prepped. That because she has a lot of things in life to do, but hopefully we'll be able to get her on here Saturday.
All right. And Ann, Mr. Steve, what's your opinion about the Indiana traffic stops? I know FBI has said they didn't request those, but still seems awful coincidental, especially 2 stops.
I mean, there's a lot of agencies involved. It may have not been the FBI. It could have been any other agency that has an interest in the case, from the state, from Washington State Police down to Moscow to, there could be a lot of different reasons, or it could have just been a random traffic stop.
Okay. People want to hear your stories. All right, and let's see here. Perry, UK True Crime. How long after evidence is uncovered, for example, victim's DNA is found in vehicle, would investigators have to notify the defense?
There will be certain time labeled within the courts, and during the discovery, and then they always add in these little things that as new evidence is developed or found, they have to notify, and there's timelines that are set by the court system, and so it's not something they can put in a back pocket and just throw it out there Perry Mason style. There will be it's structured.
All right, and I just have to add this one. We were all talking about the bat phone. This is from Ann. According to the Google machine, Batman was able to receive calls from the police commissioner on the mobile bat phone in the Batmobile, in his study at Wayne Manor, and in the Batcave.
Handy.
Perfect.
The old bat phone. If anybody was going to have it. Yeah. Mrs. Steve was playing with Batman earlier today.
I got Batman right upstairs.
She does. She was playing with her grandson, Batman.
I like Batman. And Patricia, do you think that being turned down for the job in digital forensics by L.E. may have influenced him in any way concerning these murders?
You know, they say there was an essay submitted. I don't know if he had been rejected or not. But individuals, some people handle rejection well, and some people don't. And certain narcissistic people do not handle any type of rejection. But I will be asking Dr. Susan about that also.
All right, let's see here. We have an upset dog, so I apologize.
Yeah, we got plenty of canines.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. All right, and Pigeon Mac, did Mr. Steve talk about the 911 call yet?
No, I saw where Chris had went and did a great, and watched his show about that, by the way, where he talks about the first responders and everything, and the developments that being understaffed, how 911 would have just put down as unconscious. I'd never heard of that before. That was something of interest, and if that's the case, that's something I never heard of, that just put something down. I found that fascinating. But anyway, we'll see.
In SB 74, do you think they'll release that search warrant of his apartment on March the 1st?
I hope, absolutely hope, because that's going to tell us so much. Not so much, the search warrant is what they're going to be looking for. It's the return, which would be part of meaning that they're going to go in there with this big, broad search warrant, wanting everything that Lynette Joy, 999 for your high standards and how you giggle when you talk about Barney Fife. Thank you. hey,
thank you so much.
Be careful there with Barney.
You don't mess with Barney. What?
The question again.
I don't know.
Yep.
It was the 911 call.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't it?
No, I think it was something else.
If I messed up, somebody type it in there real quick.
Yeah,
I deleted it real quick.
She gets happy fingers.
Yeah, clicker happy. All right, and Janelle Smith. Hey, y'all. Steve, in a previous live, you mentioned a staging area after looking at the maps. Have you given some thought as to where or what it was?
Yes, I've looked at that of mapping out of where his phone came back on down. I think it was at Blaine or whatever the city just south of Moscow, and over that distance of where he could have possibly, what area he could have went into, and because I think there's like about a 10-minute window that he could have done anything they wanted to before that phone came back on because of the travel time. So, I've seen criminals that we would watch them, and just like we're talking tonight about Kohberger, if he is, that when you are watching crime scenes or potential crime scenes or doing stakeouts, and as a criminal comes into a window of opportunity, you'll see their mannerisms change, just as you'll see their mannerisms change as soon as they realize that they've been seen, and totally they become a different human. And but also after the crime, since they what to do with 5 pounds. Love you guys. Gonna have to watch the replay. I'm with you, Steve. Unverified messages, sure, the gag order complicates things. Absolutely. All day.
Thank you so much.
But where could he have gone during that window to either do a quick cleanup or change clothes, that post-staging area? I just don't know, but it will be somewhere between the crime scene and where that phone came on. Something happened during those 10 minutes of him getting his second wind or something.
All right, 3 left. Hang in there with us. All right, we have K. Was there a, can I say that word?
No.
Okay. Was there a S motive to these murders?
We don't know. The time limit that if you look at from when the surviving witness said that of what disturbance she heard upstairs till the time they left, and from where you see the camera showing the vehicle, or as they reported in the probable cause, and it depends on how you define that act, because it's not always as what occurs as what you think, because the mind is so powerful, and that's part of the satisfaction to his mind, regardless of any other act, is all that matters. So it could be, but it's all totally mentally satisfaction.
All right, we're going to end with this one. Perry, UK True Crime. Considering the distances he was comfortable driving, why would he choose so close to home? He could have done this anywhere.
And I give all that due to the targeting, that if he is the offender, he targeted them, he had a plan, and he may have only anticipated 1 or 2 of them as being the target, but it turned out that 4 became the target. But I think it's just that it was something that he could do within a certain distance of his residence, that was close to home, but also had a buffer. And it was on that outside ring of those 10 minutes. And some of the other cases I've talked about, that there is a timer about certain individuals, how far they will go after they commit a crime. And it's pretty close to that. But
anyway. All right, you are done.
Well, guys, I want to thank everyone that came in here tonight, especially all the people that donated and contributed. That allows this channel, as I've said, to go into a direction that we never imagined, that when we created this and only was going to move this channel towards being an ambassador for law enforcement. I never imagined going out and working with families on cold cases, but everyone that participates in these lives allows us to do that, either by donating, watching ads, chatting, giving me thumbs up, subbing, sharing, the views. All that allows us to be able to go out and help these other families. And once again, it's humbling for us to have nights like this tonight. And we want to thank everyone out there. And we want to especially thank the mods, because we couldn't do it without the mods.
No way I could do that without my mods.
And we are beholden to a lot of people. And we look forward to working with y'all in the future as much as we can. And hopefully we can together can have a great impact on some of these cases. And y'all stay safe out there, and see y'all soon.
Thanks. Love y'all.